What is up, guys? Lord Nick here, bringing you another One Piece related video, and in this video, guys, we're going to be going over my Sakazuki list for OPO5. This is just kind of for the beginning of OPO5. I think there are definitely better Sakazuki lists. This is not necessarily what I think is the most ideal list. If I had to think of ideal, I would think of the one that runs 4 Great Eruptions, 3 Hinas, and doesn't really run Mihawks anymore. But I am running this kind of variant due to the fact that I don't have access to Great Eruptions. I didn't pick up. I was kind of being a little hesitant. I didn't want to spend money. I was trying to do trades for all the cards that I needed, and nobody really had options for Great Eruptions or Hinas for me to jump on, or not, at least not fast enough. There was a couple options, and I was a little slow. Didn't get to them, so I didn't end up with these cards. As of today, I'm going to have 2 Hinas and 1 Great Eruption. Great Eruption is now sitting at way too high a price point for myself, so this is what I built off of what I had. So let's kind of go into how I envision this list to go, how I think this is going to look, and why I've made some of the decisions I've made. So in general, most of the lists I've cut down to 3 Kuzans and 3 Borsalinos. Because of the fact that you can get them back, you don't necessarily need a 4 of them. You're going to be digging through your deck often enough that it's pretty easy to be able to recur them and get enough of them that you constantly have the option to grab either or. And often a lot of old lists always just ran 2 Kuzans because they'd get stuck in your hand if you ran more than 2. In this list, because of Sakazuki, we have the availability to run more and be able to get rid of them. My current list has a little bit more of a top end than most, right? So in those 2 slots, really, we have 2 Draco Mihawks. You could run 2 more Borsalinos if you want. You could run 2 Sakazukis if you want. You could even make those into Great Eruptions if you have them. The thing is I'm running Mihawks because of the fact that I don't have a lot of those. He hits a lot higher than a Borsalino, and he's still just a menacing card. I run him in a couple of my I run him currently in my my Blurple Crocodile. I love this card. When I see this card is pretty dang useful, and guess what? It even synergizes well with our 1-drop useful abilities, so we can get rid of any costed card here. It's just super useful card. He's a great top end. So I decided to add him in. We still have the Borsalinos, of course. 3 Hina seems to be the standard just to get you some card draw in this deck. Outside of Kuzan's card draw. And then otherwise, everything else is relatively standard. Like I said, I only have 2 Hinas. I only have 1 Great Eruption. So we're tossing in Marinefords, which is a card that's kind of been cut from a lot of these lists. But I've put it back in only due to the fact that I don't have the option to get this. So on play, it's the same thing, except I just don't get a draw, which is fine. You don't, I mean, the draw is nice, but you get more, you need more of just the cost reduction. So if you don't have Great Eruptions and you have access to a set of Marinefords, feel free to put in a set of Marinefords instead. Well, yes, it can kind of feel bad to have to run 4 of these cards. The thing is you can use this card to replace itself. So if you tap Marineford and you have one out, you tap it, get 1, you play another one. Hey, guess what? For 1 cost, you've now -3'd on your opponent's character. That in some cases can be a lot better than Great Eruption. Yes, Great Eruption gives you an extra card draw, but we have enough other cards in this list that draw us cards that I don't think that that's necessarily a must-have type of thing. It is a good card. Don't get me wrong. Great Eruption is a great card. I think, though, that having the option to have +3 on a turn is just as valuable. Now, note, I mean, for 1 cost more, you can get 1 more minus, or you can just run more Ice Ages. I do have another list that I'm going to be showing, and while I'm not going too in-depth on this list, if you guys are looking for Sakazuki stuff, there's a lot of great lists out there for Sakazuki. I just wanted to kind of give you a reference point for what I'm doing based off of what I have. But I understand that a lot of people are running into similar issues of me, and in some cases, they're not as blessed as I am to have a full set of Kuzan and Borsalinos. I got these guys way, way back in the day, and nowadays, well, let's take a look at what they're looking at right now. So when we're looking at Borsalino, or when we look at Kuzans, he's currently sitting about $18 a piece. Getting 3 of these, let alone 4 of these, is going to be out of quite a few people's price range. And then Borsalino's even worse. He's 29, almost 20, almost $30. So, yeah, these 2 cards probably aren't going to be in that many people's range. Well, I waited too long, and Hina's are now $11. So this is already going to be pushing it, right? Like you need 4 of these supposedly, sometimes just 3, but 3 to 4 of these, that's still pretty pricey. And then Great Eruptions is getting close to $20 a piece. So we're kind of at a point that some of these staple cards for Sakazuchi is pushing the deck to be more expensive than some of the most expensive decks we've seen so far, and can push it out of a lot of people's price range. So because of this, I've decided we're going to be doing a budget list, more or less, right? Like I think that there is a good budget Sakazuchi still, and that budget list looks something like this. So let me go over some of the reviews of stuff that I've done. So based off of my list, I like having a little bit more top end. So in place of the Mihawks, who were a card that I had left off of the last of looking at it, they're sitting at about 18 apiece, I believe. I tossed in Sakazuchi. He's searchable, so it's fine. He is a little bit less. He's a 7k opposed to a 9k, which can't hurt. So, I mean, maybe you just want to do Borsalinos. But off the bat, he hits a 5 opposed to a 4. So it is nice to have that kind of option. So it is your choice. You can run 4 Borsalinos, or you can run, you know, these. And guess what? The biggest reason that I think it's a plus to have Sakazuchi potentially is you can actually you can get him off of Rebecca. You can get him back off Rebecca. On a 10-Dawn turn, you can get him back from Rebecca. Use Rebecca to play out, oh, I don't know, a Suru or whatever. Get a -2 on their stuff. So now you can hit a 7 cost on your 10-dot turn. That's not actually all that bad. You got a blocker. You are getting rid of a 7 cost. It's not all that bad. It's not necessarily ideal, but it's something you can do. Now, let's kind of explain some of the other cards that we've put in here. So we took out the Great Eruption. We took out the Hinas. We tossed in, for place of the Hinas, we put in 2 Ice Ages. This card's just a 1-drop, get -5 on stuff. I think Ice Age can be a 4 of if you are missing stuff, and it's a much more budget option compared to having Great Eruptions. We've added in an additional Marine Fort or 2 to replace the other card. Really, that's it. We just replaced our cost reductions with Marine Forts and Ice Ages. They're searchable. You can find them off brand new. You can put them back to the bottom of your deck if you really end up needing them. They're there. They're options. They're there. Now, as for our replacement for Borsalinos and our replacements for our Kuzans, we're going to do them as this. So in replacement of Kuzan, we have Ulti. Ulti does half of the purpose of Kuzan. Kuzan is card draw. Ulti is also card draw. Now, the thing about Ulti, though, is that we can then start stacking our deck. And if we know what's at the bottom of our deck and we need to get there faster, guess what? Ulti allows us to actually do that. And outside of just drawing a card, which puts us closer, man, these 2 cards are not cards that I need right now. Let me put them to the bottom. So if our deck starts getting small into the late game, you drop an Ulti. Your Ulti can actively start getting you closer to getting to that second rotation in your deck. It's not a terrible option. I'm running currently 2 Ultis in my Blurple Croc. I've gotten to test this card. This card feels really good. I would not be surprised if she ends up holding a higher price tag in the future, because the card selection and card advantage that you get from this is just so good. Because guess what? You get to look at the top 3 before you draw. So you look at the top 3, you add 1 to your hand, and then you put the rest on top or bottom. That's so good. It's such a useful ability. It's super strong. Seeing as more multicolored leaders are coming out, seeing as those are becoming the more favored decks, I would not be surprised to see Ulti more. But she replaces the Kuzan card draw. She is not recurable through our Rebecca engine, but she can be put to the bottom via our Moncherie or our Rob Lucci's. So that is something there. And now, in terms of replacing our Borsalino, you can go the route of adding 2 Sabos and finding maybe a Fukuro or maybe 3 Fukuros if that's something you want. I went with something that is comparable size-wise, and also adds more card advantage. So you have Basil Hawkins. So because this deck has sometimes doesn't gain a whole lot of card advantage, you can run out of cards in your hand still, like any Navy deck. What I decided to do is you add in Basil Hawkins in this budget variant, because of the fact that if you have 3 or less cards and you block with him, he gets plus 1k and you draw a card. So it's a way to gain cards back. On top of that, he becomes a 6k blocker like Borsalino, but he's not always a 6k blocker. And if your opponent is not paying attention, when you block with this, if they swing just 5 at you, you just block with Basil. Because the card doesn't print 6K on it, your opponent doesn't always necessarily think 6K. It's happened with Borsalinos quite often with me. It can happen with Basil, and with Basil it becomes more impactful. Because yes, while the Borsalino is still very impactful because he can't be KO'd by effects and Basil can, what happens with the Basil Hawkins aspect of it is if he does not get removed like a Borsalino, you don't swing with him again. You use the card advantage he just gave you to start stacking some pressure on your opponent, because you can just empty your hand essentially and you're going to get cards back from him. On top of that, if they have a multi-attack swing and you only have 3 cards and you really don't have enough counter in your hand, you can block with him and hopefully dig into a counter. That is something that is super impactful and has won me games over on my other list that I keep referencing, my Blurple Croc, which you should check out that video. I have more in depth on that list. But Basil offers that option. So he is a serviceable substitution. I would not say he's a great substitution. Again, this is more blue than most Sakas are running, and the biggest reason is because you can't recur them with Rebecca. But we have Moncherie put stuff to the bottom. We have Rob Lucci put stuff to the bottom. So now we have more things that we can put to the bottom that we don't mind going to the bottom because we can't get them out of the trash anyways. So the stuff that stays in our trash ends up becoming the stuff that we want to get back. You know, we get our Tashigi 2Ks back. We get our Suru, well, we can't get the Surus back off of Rebecca, but we can get Tashigi's back. We can get our Kobe's back. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, we can get Sabo's back, we can get Lucci's back. I mean, we can get stuff back. We don't have as much to play with Rebecca in this as something else, right? Like, she does tell us we have to play a 3 or cost or less black character. So, I mean, we might get a Moncherie out, we could get a brand new out, maybe a Kobe out. I think Kobe is pretty good. I saw that Eggman was running 2 in his list. I'd previously tested 2 in my lists. I've liked him as a 2 of. I don't think you go above 2 of with him. And yes, while you don't have the Hinas, the deck is definitely missing Hinas. That is one of the best things you can play off of Rebecca. I think that this particular list will still do okay, and I think you could still do pretty good in locals with this, and it would save you a ton of money in the process. So if you don't have a lot of money right now, you can play this and still get a similar-ish experience. You won't get to see how broken Rebecca is by being able to play so many things. And yes, Rebecca's are still pricey. Overall, I think she's sitting at about $9 a piece right now. So, I mean, yeah, that can be a little bit pricey, but at some point we do have to cut a line of, well, you do have to spend some money on this game. And I think that having Rebecca's is probably more impactful. Getting your Lucci's back is very impactful. He's only about $4.50 each. I mean, the most of this deck is under $1, right? Like about $1, about $1, under $1, under $1, under $1, under $1, under $1, well under $1 for all of these, about $1, under $1, about $2. So like, you're not spending that much. Sabos are maybe 4, and then you have 9s and 450s. So like, most of your price is coming into these 2 cards, and so that's what I really focused on. This is to make you have a budget list. If you don't want a budget list, you can look at a more competitive Saka list, or you can look at even my Saka list, which is still, I think, competitive. It's just different because of the fact of what I have available in my own card pool. Hopefully you guys found this video insightful. If you like this video, please leave a like, maybe comment down below, and tell me what type of videos you want to see in the future. Maybe you have some ideas or some questions about cards. I'm generally pretty good about getting back to them, so please leave it below and let me know. And until the next time, guys, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye, guys.